will start in a minute. Meanwhile, let me give you a little bit of introduction about what the session is going to be about. So the speaker is Jacob. Jacob is right now the founder and CEO of Butter. Before this, he was a serial entrepreneur and he successfully launched multiple ideas. Right. And with his experience, what we are going to explore today is how do you come up with a problem identification framework. So, as product managers, it's important for us to identify the right solution to which we are building products for. Without a purpose, a product is really nothing, right? So, this will be addressed by Jacob during this session. He'll be joining in a minute or two. Meanwhile, feel free to check out the booth or mention your questions on the chat session over here, and we'll be right with you. Hey, Jacob, we are live. So. I'll leave the stage up to you. We have the session has already started, and to the audience, once again, the session is about problem identification framework, and the speaker is Jacob, who runs Butter. Butter is an amazing solution. You guys should check it out. And by the way, this is not promoted. This is a genuine feedback. So over to you.
Yep. Thanks so much, Jamali, and thanks so much for having me. Really excited to be here. Yes. So. Let me just share my screen without further ado. Yes, excellent, it's working. So I don't know, do you want me to just start out and start talking, Jamali, or do you want to do some intro or anything?
Let's get started. I think we can, take the session as and when we get questions from the audience.
That's perfect. And honestly, super open to answer questions along the way. So again, really happy to be here. My name is Jacob. I'm the CEO and founder of Butter, which is an all-in-one platform for collaborative sessions. You can check it out on butter.us. It's free to sign up. So it gives you a bit of context to the stuff that I'm about to talk about. Again, today I'm going to talk about how we identified the butter problem, which is the problem that we essentially started working on a little over a year ago. For context, this is myself and my two co-founders, Chris and Adam, the co-founders of Butter. Again, Chris is Danish as am I, based in Copenhagen, and Adam is Malaysian, based in Indonesia. So we actually started out a company together before. In 2019, we started out a game streaming startup called StreamCrux. Again, for context, I've spent quite a bit of my career in. Jamali, would you mind muting? I think there's a bit of a feedback on your side. So I spent the majority of my career 4 years in strategy consulting in Bain, and after that, around 3 years building a digital marketing agency in Southeast Asia and Indonesia and selling that off. But in 2019, I started out StreamCrux together with Chris, and later Adam joined. So we thought, now is the time. Let's build a game streaming startup, creating content discovery on top of platforms such as Twitch. It was an experience, a painful one. We built a pretty cool product. It was fun working together, got some great people. But at the end of the day, we did not get traction. So in January of last year, we pulled the plug on StreamCrux and started out doing other stuff. Basically, we thought we've got quite complementary skills. Again, I've got digital marketing skills and general business and strategy skills. Chris has a product design background and Adam has tech background. So we were the, what do you call it? You call it like the hustler, the hipster, and the hacker trio, which is quite useful. So we wanted another go together. But what we wanted to also ensure was that we identified the big problem that we should solve, because that was the main kind of mistake or issue that we had with StreamCrux, namely that we did not correctly identify the problem we were solving. That was essentially why we failed. That's what I'm going to be talking a little bit more about today, because right after we started out on our own after StreamCrux, COVID struck, or Corona. And we thought, okay, we built our previous team as a remote team. There must be something within this remote work area in terms of problems that we can attack. and I'll get back to it how we attacked it. But one way we did was talk to users quite a lot in terms of mapping out the various problems that could be there. So we essentially started out a consulting business doing workshops for teams and startups that have been pushed remotely by COVID, that we called RemoteCamp. So we helped companies transition to remote work. The whole idea here was to identify problems that they faced and map them out. What we didn't expect actually was that remote workshops were themselves quite difficult. So one of the problems that were identified and the problem that we eventually ended up going after was the problem that we ourselves experienced, namely that Zoom is not built for complex meetings collaboration. We felt energy getting sapped very quickly. There was loads of tech overhead, and they were extremely cumbersome to plan. So that was why we created Meet Butter back in the day. So that's back in May of last year. We launched a little mobile app that was supposed to run alongside of Zoom, and we thought that was a great idea. It really wasn't. But what came out of Meet Butter kind of was, namely Butter, and we launched that in June of last year as a full video conferencing platform for complex collaborations. And again, the value prop was twofold: reducing technical friction in remote workshops and creating energy, essentially creating workshop flow. Quick status, like end of 2020, we spoke to over 500 workshop facilitators, everything from HR trainers, strategy consultants, coaches, design sprinters. We demoed the Butter and we developed products, and we saw very nice growth in 2020. So that made us very happy. We also went from something looking like this. So this was Butter 1.0. You had the massive thing on the right-hand side here, which was the original mobile app that we simply slapped together with a video tech. And then we had the videos in here and developed into what Butter is, a bit more what Butter is today, namely Butter 2.0, which is a way more complex app for that is now used by thousands upon thousands of users on a daily basis. Again, going a bit more into how we got to Butter, it wasn't just a coincidence. It was through quite rigorous exploration. And it started out with a number of questions that we kind of asked ourselves. So we mapped up, I just looked at our problem mapping yesterday while kind of wrapping some stuff up for this session. And I could see we actually had like over 100 different problems that we somehow wrote up in a way. So we wrote them up with a problem statement, a 1-2 sentences about the problem. We had a problem description, which is a longer one. We had a target audience. We had insights and knowledge, so stuff that we knew about the problem. We had current solutions, so the way that people currently solve the problem. And we had a number of hypotheses. So what did we need to test in order to see whether the problem was real? Again, the big thing here is it wasn't like, oh, we came up with the idea for Butter. No, we started out with a problem that we wanted to solve, and that was what kind of gave birth to what eventually became Butter. What we then did was also look a lot at the brilliant materials at Y Combinator's Startup School. Honestly, it's some of the best stuff out there. If you haven't already now checked it out, go to startupschool.com. It's got such a wealth of video materials that's just excellent to kind of jump straight into. And we basically constructed our problem framework from them. I'd almost say that we stole it. A lot of the stuff is directly stolen from some of the talks there and kind of stitched together. So what we would do would be to evaluate all of these various problems. So the things we described here, we'd evaluate all of those based on 4 personal preference characteristics and 9 criteria. So this was basically how, on a low, medium, high basis, we evaluated every single problem that we looked at. And 4 characteristics were quite simple. I'm not going to go too much into them. Like, we wanted something that had a clear monetization. We actually wanted to build a bootstrap business to begin with. It needs to have a global scale. Again, we were a global team, so we wanted not to build something super local. And personally, we didn't want to go into hardware because we didn't know how to, and not into business to government stuff because the sales cycles are extremely painful when selling to government entities. That was more like personal preference stuff. But then we went into the 9 different characteristics, or the 9 different criteria. That was what it was called. Yes. So taking them one by one. The first criteria that we went into was whether it is a popular problem. So essentially, is this a problem that a lot of people have? Quite straightforward. Second thing is whether it is a growing problem, so a problem that becomes bigger and bigger over time. Third is whether it's an urgent problem, so something that people simply need to solve right now and they cannot wait to solve it. Whether it's an expensive problem, so they need to solve it right now and it's also very expensive to solve it with the current solutions that are in place. And whether it is something that people simply have to solve. Whether it's a frequent problem, something that people face quite often. So if it's only a problem people face once a year, then it's probably not as important for them, or it might be important to solve it at that space and time, but it'll be very hard to create a sticky solution. Then there was also a question of founder market fit. So are we able to relate to the problem and solve it? But especially the relate to the problem proved to be very important. Again, with Butter, it was we solve workshops, which is something I've personally done hundreds of. Ease of getting started. So is it easy or cheap to test the hypotheses or set up the MVP? That also related to, you could see it, both the hardware one would not be easy to get started. A deep tech one problem is often not either too easy to get started with, at least not for our specific team. And also whether there's a lack of alternative solutions and competition. So essentially, how red is the market, or how hard is it to get going there? So these different 9 criteria were essentially all criteria that we evaluated. I think it was like almost 100 different problems that we kind of went there and looked at, how popular, growing, urgent, expensive, mandatory, frequent, founder market fit, ease getting started, and lack of solutions and competition that we had. Yep, it was very detailed, and it was just helpful to kind of wrap our head around it, right? So with taking the example of Butter, again, it's a big problem. We looked at how many workshops. Again, workshop seems like something, oh yeah, it's not something that's done too often. But when you look at what a workshop actually is, it's everything from trainings, like adult education, it's strategy sessions, it's product design sprints. There are many workshops taking place. Whether it's a growing problem, whether that's what kind of COVID helped with, because we saw that there were way more workshops being facilitated remotely. Whether it's an urgent problem, yeah, I mean, you cannot, they had to solve it right now because a lot of people's businesses depended on it. Expensive, again, it's with the current solutions, they would have to basically build their own solution around it. And we saw people having extremely elaborate and extremely expensive solutions to solve it. Mandatory problem, well, their entire livelihoods depended on solving it. Frequent problem, that was a bit more tricky because how often do you really have workshops? That was more of a use case. So some types of workshops, like trainings, are facilitated on a daily basis in a lot of organizations. So actually, for some users, it was a very frequent problem. Founder market fit, as mentioned before, like I understand the use case very well, and Chris, my co-founder, has done a lot of product workshops as well. Ease of getting started, well, that was kind of to be tested out. I mean, we didn't go all in on Butter to begin with, to be perfectly honest. We went 50% in, and it turned out to be easy to get started, so yeah. And then in terms of lack of alternative solutions and competition, it was more like a medium. So there were a lot of alternatives, but there was no one attacking that particular vertical at the time that we kind of went into it. Yeah, so that was kind of how we identified the Butter problem, and it has helped us grow quite a lot. And we, on an ongoing basis, always test whether the problem that we initially identified is real. So we're doing loads of interviews and loads of talks with our target audience on an ongoing basis. And again, the master problem might be real, but then you break that down into smaller problems, and then you have to identify whether each of individual of these problems is actually a real problem. Yeah, so that was actually what I kind of brought along today. I know there was a bit of a tour de force through the framework, but very happy to answer any questions that might pop up from the audience.
Thank you so much, Jakob. I specifically enjoyed a lot. I mean, there was a lot of information that even I might have, left out while evaluating such problem statements. But yeah, yours, the way you have approached uh, trying to structure Brutter and building it as a solution itself, and being one of the first in the market, that's great actually. That's really nice.
Thanks so much, Shimali.
To the audience, please post any questions that you have on the chat or on the Q&A session. We can pick it up. Or if you are interested in coming on board onto the stage and having a quick chat with Jacob, just feel free to do so. I see Sandeep and Ashish waiting to come on stage. Let me just push them. Right. Hey, Sandeep, you're live. Uh, Feel free to ask your question to Jacob.
Hello, Sandeep.
Yeah, hi Jacob. Are you able to hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Yeah, right. So in your case, you mentioned like one of the criteria you figured out was is there any presence of competition or is already there a solution for that problem? But sometimes I have also seen that many startups face this issue where they are doing it for the first time and there is no competition. So can lack of competition be also can that be also an issue, or it can hamper your growth prospects?
I mean, that's a really good question. So again, the question is whether lack of competition could also be an issue, right, Sandeep? Just make sure I understand correctly.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, just flipping back to the framework, right? I mean, I think lack of competition is not in and of itself a problem. The thing is, lack of competition very often indicates that the problem that you've identified is not a real problem, or it's simply not. It doesn't really hit a lot of the other criteria very highly. Because if no one else is solving the problem, how popular, growing, urgent, expensive, mandatory, etc. is it really? So I think lack of competition shows one of two things. Either your assessment of the problem is incorrect on other aspects, or you simply haven't really gone through the market or come through the market well enough. Then, of course, there's the third wild chase that you are really on the forefront of something, but I wouldn't expect that to be real unless you're really into deep tech or anything like that.
Yeah. Like I personally had experienced this issue like when I spoke to one of the founder of a business school which was started by professionals back in 2015, and it was like it was a hybrid online offline a type of management course for professionals. But at that time there was no such concept of offline and online certificate courses like 6 months or 1 month courses. And gradually, like after 2 years he had to stop that thing. But right now if you see there are like too many, it's difficult to count. So that was, and that time he said that we don't have a competitor, and that's also posing a problem.
Yeah, no, for sure, and there are many other reasons why lack of competitors can be a problem. But you're entirely correct. It's definitely important to kind of watch out for that. I think the biggest fallacy is really falling into the fact that you're just not really solving a real problem. Cool.
Hey,
any other questions?
So thank you so much for coming on board, Sandeep. We have Ashish Patel from the audience. I am bringing him on the stage now. All right. I think Ashish has left the stage, so let's just move on. There's some love from the audience for Butter. It's from Kushal Raj. Thank you so much, Kushal. All right. So yeah, I think that's it for now, Jacob. To the audience, if you have any questions, I posted Jacob's Twitter handle and Butter's Twitter handle on the chat. Feel free to drop in a tweet if you like the tool, or if you have any questions for Jacob on how to get your problem identification framework right, and how to even get started with building a product based on that.
Yep, and I've also posted my LinkedIn in the chat. You're welcome to connect with me, write me there. I think that's probably the easiest if you want to get in touch with me. So
Awesome.
thanks again so much for having me, Jamali, and thanks and to the audience as well.
Thanks, Jacob. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
All right, guys. So we still have 5 more minutes for the current session to end. There is a fireside chat happening in parallel about what it takes to, for the marketing to set the expectation right with the product team and vice versa. So feel free to head over there, or you can also visit one of the expo booths by Auth0 and cm.com. So cm.com has a wide variety of benefits they are providing.